Hi, I'm Leo, and I'm from Stackhut. Stackhut is a new way to deploy code that means that developers never have to wrestle with infrastructure again. Stackhut takes the functions you write and lets you execute them anywhere, at any scale, without servers. And for our users, this is their biggest upgrade since they started using AWS. Why? Because everyone knows that cloud computing has transformed the way that developers work. But what might be less obvious is that getting your code live in the cloud is still an absolute nightmare. At my last job, where I was CTO, we would spend more time dealing with infrastructure than solving unique, relevant problems. And that sounds crazy, but let me walk you through the steps that I'd have to take if I want to deploy a function that turns a PDF into an image. Well, first of all, I'd have to find a server for my code to live on. So I'd go to a cloud provider like Amazon, and I'd provision one. I'd install an operating system, configure it, and then install all the dependencies that my code needs. I then have to configure my cloud environment and connect my infrastructure to the rest of the world. And I'm done? No! That's just the server. I have to now write a bunch of server logic in my code. So I learn a web framework, even though I'm only using 10% of what it has to offer. I then have to write an API that sits on top of my function using HTTP or REST, and then I have to manually integrate that API into the rest of my code. This is what developers actually spend most of their time doing. But this is not what developers should spend most of their time doing. Stackhut takes the process that I just described and turns it into the following. You write your functions like you normally would. You type stackhut deploy, and you're done. Your function is launched onto the Stackhut platform and can now be called anywhere, in any language, at any scale. And as a developer, you can now focus on writing business logic instead of writing server logic. So why isn't this the norm? Well, building Stackhut has just become possible because of a new technology called containers. And containers are magic because they let us take all the steps that I just described to you and execute them in 50 milliseconds. And this is why everyone from Amazon to Google is betting that the containers are the future of cloud computing, a $130 billion industry. With our segment, platforms as a service worth $4.5 billion and growing 65% a year. I'm an EF and Y Combinator alum who came back to EF to solve this problem because it was the biggest pain in the ass for us, my last company. I was the evangelist for this product before it even existed. My co-founder Mandeep had a similar experience, and he did his PhD at Oxford in the technology we're using to build Stackhut. Mandeep is literally the goddamn expert when it comes to this stuff. But don't take our word for it. We launched our MVP just over a week ago, and we've already had developers using Stackhut to run and deploy their code. But it's not just individual developers. We've got 2 signed paid deals with startups and 6 commitments from others. And they're using Stackhut so they can get back to what they're great at, which is building awesome products for their users. But the demand we're getting right now is too much for 2 of us to handle. We have an ad tech company who wants to use Stackhut to run 1 trillion events a month. This is why we're raising £400,000, so we can scale the product to the one that our users need. And when you think about it, it's no surprise that people need something like Stackhut. As one of our users so eloquently put it to me the other day, Stackhut lets me build more shit in less time. Stackhut gives developers superpowers. And we'd love to work with you to build the next generation of cloud.